Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis with Forbes Breaking News. Joining me now is my colleague, Forbes staff writer, Zach Everson. Zach, thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me back on, Brittany.
The White House released President Biden's annual financial disclosure last week, and you did the honors of digging into it for us. So first, you pointed out inflation is not only impacting the average American, it's also impacting the Biden family. How so?
Yeah. Middle-class Joe has a variable, a loan against a line of credit on his house that has a variable interest rate. So he, along with everybody else, as interest rates go up, that hurts him as well.
So you found out that the Bidens took out a $250,000 home equity loan on their Rehoboth Beach house in 2022. That year they borrowed against it, as well as 2023. How much did they borrow?
So the first year they reported taking out somewhere between $15,000 and $50,000. And then in 2023, it was somewhere between $100,000 and $250,000. You know, as a reporter, and I think anybody who cares about ethics in government, one of the problems is that these reports just require candidates and officials to report within broad ranges. So it's very difficult to tell whether it went up 50,000 or whether he borrowed 200,000, which would certainly be quite a different story there. But we do not know for sure. I reached out to the White House. They declined to provide any more details than what was in the report.
And is there any indication as to why he borrowed this money?
It seems to be in a pattern of ongoing behavior. It seems to be how he's run his finances for years, and that he has some very nice homes right now that we valued. I think it was about a combined $7 million when we last looked at his net wealth. And it's a good way to get some money out of those. It's not different than many other Americans who take similar loans.
Aside from borrowing against the beach house, do the Bidens have any other debts?
They have a couple other loans. They have some debts, that a term loan and loans against their life insurance that total just $25,000 to $65,000. Their biggest loan, though, remains a 30-year mortgage on their house in Wilmington, which is somewhere between $250,000 and $500,000. So again, we're looking at this really broad range, and because of that, it makes it difficult to come up with a sum. Did Joe Biden's debts go up? Did he borrow more last year? You can't really tell because of the way those ranges are set. A little increase of $1 could bump them up a massive reporting range. So it's tough to say, to get an overall picture just based on this document.
So as you said, they have a nice real estate portfolio, nice houses. Forbes estimates at $7 million. So talk about how much their other assets are worth. What are they and how you got that number?
So their non-real estate assets are worth somewhere between $1 million and $2.6 million. Between $700,000 and $1.6 million of that is in cash. The president reported having a variable annuity, which invests in a bunch of different mutual funds, and that's worth more than $135,000. And then they have 6 life insurance policies that are valued between $62,000 and, again, $230,000. So again, we're looking at that really broad range. Most of his retirement, though, is locked up in his government pension. He's been a career government employee with the exception of a few years. So he is getting a hefty pension there. He's getting about $250,000 a year via his pension, and that does not need to be reported on one of these personal financial disclosures.
And he's holding the highest office you can hold as a career government employee. How much is he bringing in as president each year?
President is $400,000 is what the law states the president gets paid. They also get, I think it's about $50,000 that they can use to cover some of their living expenses that are related to being president. Like, you can't just use that and say, oh, we got 50 grand to cover living expenses. Let's go out and buy a big flat screen. It's expenses incurred with in connection to having that office.
And in the past, a little bit over 15 years, President Biden has penned 2 books. In this report, in this disclosure, did you see that he got any royalties from them?
For both of those, he checked the box. That was none or less than $200. So in both instances, he is not reported making any royalties there. Now, I don't know the specifics of the book deal. I did find that a little bit interesting. You would expect that enough people would be buying the President of the United States book, even if it had been out several years, to generate something in royalties, but it didn't. But again, it could just be the result of the book contract as well.
And Dr. Jill Biden is an author herself. She also has still remained as a professor while serving as First Lady. Is there any indication of how much she's bringing in?
Yeah, so she didn't have to report her teaching salary from Northern Virginia Community College, but she did bring in from her book. She has 3 books. They brought in a little bit less than $10,000 in royalties.
And so, in total, how much does Forbes estimate the Bidens are worth, and how much of that is cash?
So we estimate that they're worth about $10 million, and that is largely real estate, throwing in their pensions, and then the other accounts that were on this recent disclosure. That said, one of my next assignments is to go ahead and take another look at the Biden's wealth. So we'll be looking at getting new appraisals on their real estate values. So we'll have an updated number on that sometime in the next, hopefully, few weeks.
And I'm sure we will be talking about that. But as we know, the Biden's net worth pales in comparison to the predecessor, former President Donald Trump. But I am curious how this recent disclosure compares to Donald Trump's.
Yeah, so Trump didn't actually file a disclosure this year. He requested a 45-day extension, which is absolutely legal and something he can do. Just as a reporter, what was fascinating to me was that Biden's disclosure was like 11 pages and 3 of them were blank, whereas Trump's goes on for hundreds of pages. It was just very strange, and I've focused a lot more on Trump's businesses. There's a lot more to report there. And, I'm used to looking at his disclosures, and all of a sudden with Biden's, I'm like, are there some pages missing in here? But no, everything was there.
And what does that indicate with the page disparity there?
Well, I mean, obviously the former President Trump has a slew of business interests that are, go across the globe and that are incredibly intricate and messy and interconnected, and requires a lot of reporting. He has a ton of LLCs that you need to report. He has many securities holdings that need to report, whereas Biden is, simple, just, much more in line, I think, with what an average American would have, except for the fact that he is worth $10 million, which clearly the average American is not worth.
Aside from, I wish I was the average American if that was $10 million. But per usual, Zach Everson, thank you so much for your reporting.
My pleasure.